A very good morning, Team Zimbabwe. Mamuka say, Mamuka say, Mamuka say. I'm here so that we talk about important matters. And my name is Ronald Makusha. So this morning, we need to take a look how ZANU PF is destroying Zimbabwe and refuses to take responsibility. So we have seen so many narratives about how Zimbabwe is being destroyed. But at the center is ZANU PF. And they have been deliberately destroying Zimbabwe, and they have refused to take responsibility. 1980, the government of Zimbabwe was left number one with gold reserves. Those reserves are no longer there. Number two, with the functional currency. That functional currency is no longer there. Number three, with the functional parastatals. Those functional parastatals are no longer there. I'm going to explain. We have a company which can make rural people in Zimbabwe have money in their pockets. That company is CSC Zimbabwe. Let us go to CSC. I need you to take a look onto CSC. Just find a simple definition of CSC. The cold storage company is a 100% owned meat production, processing, and marketing company in Zimbabwe that had a monopoly of exporting beef to the European Union. When was CSC founded? 1937. If I'm not mistaken, it was founded in 1937. And yes, that is true according to... so Cold Storage Company was formed in 1937, and that is where it was formed. Is it still functional? No, it is no longer functional. What can CSC do for the people of Zimbabwe? So you understand that some of the things we continue to see in Zimbabwe, or we continue to have as problems in Zimbabwe, are because of mismanagement, are because of failure to have clear policies on how to deal with the Zimbabwean problems. ZANU PF government destroyed CSC, and there is nothing tangible out of CSC. Villagers in Zimbabwe were supposed to be supplying CSC. They are no longer supplying CSC. Why? ZANU PF people realized that this monopoly created by CSC was giving them a disadvantage in terms of making money. So what did they do? They brought their own private companies and they destroyed CSC deliberately. With a dysfunctional CSC, it means their private companies who are dealing with meat, they can thrive. But do they have capacity to go on international markets? No, they do not have capacity to serve international markets. CSC had the capacity to serve international market. They have assets, they had equipment, they had everything. But ZANU PF people came in, destroyed it, and replaced it with their own. We have ZUPCO. ZUPCO was functional and had a reliable transport system. But what happened? They destroyed ZUPCO. Their destruction of ZUPCO, they replaced the ZUPCO with their own transport services. So what they do is they don't introduce their own to compete. They remove what is there and replace it with their own, which is failing. But before they destroy, they loot assets and resources from that state entity, which means the government of Zimbabwe is losing revenue. The people of Zimbabwe in general, they are idle as it stands right now. As we speak right now, villagers are idle. Because if villagers had a market to send their chicken, to send their pork, to send their beef, to send whatever they have, if they had a functional CSC, you would have seen these villagers being economically upgraded. But they've been destroyed for decades now. We have a very important issue. We have minerals in Zimbabwe, and we have the best mineral resources in the world. And I'm going to show you something very interesting here. There is a company called Rebecca Gold Mine. What is Rebecca Gold Mine? It's very important for us to if you go on it, Zimbabwe is a Rebecca Gold Mine. It is located 90 kilometers northeast of Harare in Zimbabwe and has proven reserves of 2.4 million tons. 2.4 million tons of gold. How much is a ton of gold? So if you do your math, a kilogram of gold is around 55,000, if I'm not mistaken, somewhere there. Because a gram of gold, it goes between $4.50 to $5 something. No, a point. A gram is around $55. Right? A gram is around $55. So a kg is around 55,000 US dollars. So a ton. So if you do that math and you continue, you will see that Rebecca Gold Mine has 2.4 million tons. Is there accountability in terms of gold reserves, in terms of the value being brought forward from Rebecca? We hear controversies each and every time. In Parliament, questions are asked, there are no answers from the ministers. Let me bring this issue of Kovimba mining, where it was asked overwhelmingly in Parliament, but there were no answers. So we cannot continue to have ZANU PF and its proxies blaming others for the failures they are creating and they have developed themselves. This is the story of Kovimba. It was asked in Parliament, and the minister was supposed to answer onto that issue. And the Deputy Minister of Finance and Economic Development, Honorable Chiduo, responded the honorable member the question regarding Kovimba Mining House. And they say Kovimba Mining House is a private limited company incorporated in accordance with the laws of Zimbabwe, and it was registered in September 2020. So if you go to the structure of Kovimba Mining House, the government of Zimbabwe owns 21.5%. Then we have an interesting issue of divest nominees, which is on behalf of farmers' compensation with the 12.5%. So remember the 3 billion whatever, which is being given to white farmers in Zimbabwe as compensation of colonizing Zimbabwe. They are being given 12.5% through Kovimba Mining House. Is there any share which is going towards the health sector? No. Is there any share which is going to a fund to fund black entrepreneurs? No. But there is a fund. There are shares in a company called Kovimba, which were given to a company which is representing white farmers for their own compensation, and the compensation is for colonizing Zimbabwe. So who owns these farms, which these farmers are being compensated for? These are political elites. Then we have National Venture Fund, Private Limited, with 7.5%. We have Public Service Pension Management Fund with 7%. This is a management fund which is dealing with pensions of our people, but they're not getting their pensions, reasonable pensions. They contributed to the pension fund. Their money is invested into companies like Kovimba, but they still get nothing and peanuts. There is a sovereign wealth fund of Zimbabwe with 6.5%. There is an Insurance and Pensions Commission, IPEC, with 5%. This is another thing which uses our money to invest into Kovimba, which deals with gold. But what is the return? What are we getting from it? Nothing. We have Deposit Protection Corporation with 5%. Are our deposits being protected? No. Our deposits were wiped away in 2019. What did we get from DPC? Nothing. Then the other private sector investors with 35%. This is Kovimba for you. And if you take a look onto this breakdown of the people who owns Kovimba, this same Kovimba, it's here. These are companies which are working under Kovimba. So the sister companies of Kovimba are Zimbabwe Alloys, Frederick Rebecca Gold Mine, Shamba Mining Company, Bindura Nickel Corporation, Great Dyke Investments, Jena Mines Mineral Development, Sandawana Mines. These are companies which are supposed to be bringing in millions into the economy of Zimbabwe. But is that happening? No, it's not happening. Because these things should reflect onto the economy itself. So ZANU PF is destroying Zimbabwe and they are refusing to take responsibility. The reason why we are saying so is because there is nothing coming out of this government led by ZANU PF. There is nothing coming out. And you will be told that Zimbabwe is failing because of A, B, C, D. Yet it's because of their mismanagement, it's because of their failure to incorporate Zimbabweans. I have never seen a Zimbabwean who is young being supported in terms of business. I have talked about CSC. I've talked about the mining sector. If we go to GMB, it was formed, I think, around 1931. Its responsibility was to support, if you go onto the finding document of GMB, its responsibility was to support small farmers. Small farmers were supposed to come up, put their grain together, have their grain sold to the international market, then the money would be shared among us. Is it the responsibility of GMB now? No. GMB has taken over the responsibility of storing grain on behalf of the nation or on behalf of the government. So, Grain Marketing Board, the name itself, Grain Marketing Board, it was supposed to be dealing with marketing of grain. That was the agenda of GMB, but it was changed to Grain Storage Board, but they've retained the name marketing. Instead of this government to introduce Grain Storage Board, they hijacked GMB. So the government was supposed to be funding GMB so that they help small farmers in the rural areas, subsistence farmers, to sell their produce in an organized manner and get a profit. But who is now getting a profit? It is the government, not the people. Who is now making a profit? It is the government, not the people. COTCO, Cotton Company of Zimbabwe, its formation was supposed to benefit farmers, small farmers, subsistence farmers. who were failing to penetrate the international market because of fewer supplies they had. I want to give you an example. If you are a farmer right now and you want to sell your tomatoes to a company, like for an example, to a supermarket, for them to have a contract with you, you must be able to supply constantly for a period. So you have to supply, number one, constantly and consistently for a period of time. So with our small farmers, we don't have that capacity. So we have a company where we are putting everything together. Then we manage to satisfy a certain market. That was the idea of having companies like ZUPCO, of having companies like TIMB. But are these companies are these companies working for the people? They are no longer working for the people. They are now being used by oppressors. Let me give you an example of TIMB, that is Tobacco Marketing Company. So you would see, Kuti, if you take a look on tobacco marketing, small farmers were supposed to put their tobacco together. Then Tobacco Marketing Board takes that to the international community and pays back the farmers. So what TMB was supposed to be doing was to just take your tobacco, check the quality, grade, and then weigh, write down things on your account. Then they sell to the international community. After selling, they give you your own share depending on the quality and weight. But it's not being done. That was a deliberate way of destroying Zimbabwe. In doing so, they've introduced some tobacco companies which are bad. You see. So you see that the agenda now is to buy themselves. They introduce their own companies, they come, they buy, and they destroy the market which has been thriving, or which was supposed to be saving the people. So you will see that is the reason why you see our tobacco farmers, they remain poor. Our cattle farmers, they remain poor. Our cotton farmers, they remain poor. Everybody remains poor. But ZANU PF people, they continuously become richer and richer and richer and richer at the expense of the villagers, at the expense of the small farmers, at the expense of the country itself. So Zimbabwe, if we had a functional agricultural industry, have a functional mining industry, no matter the amount of sanctions, Zimbabwe would be best in terms of the economy, a performance, wealth, whatever. But we've destroyed everything because of ZANU PF, because of clueless people who are within ZANU PF, who are capitalizing on these institutions for their own benefit. So, Team Zimbabwe, when we are talking about change in Zimbabwe, it's not because we want power. No. It's because we want change in Zimbabwe. We want to see farmers benefiting. We want to see miners benefiting. We want to see citizens benefiting from the resources which are in Zimbabwe. So this is just a tip of how ZANU PF is destroying Zimbabwe, how they are refusing to take responsibility, and how they have turned Zimbabwe into a tenderpreneurship country. Go to the issue of Intratech, the Chivayo issue. Chivayo was tasked to bring to deliver 100 megawatts solar project. He was paid $5 million. Did he deliver? No. There are tensions. ZPC pulling on its own, the government pulling on its own, Chivayo pulling on his own. Nobody is realizing that what should be of importance is the people of Zimbabwe, not their fights. So with 100 megawatts added onto the grid, we would have seen the industry working in Zimbabwe. But right now, there is massive load shedding. And where there is load shedding, the industry is affected. The industry tools are down. People are not working because their machinery need electricity. But that has been destroyed. At the end of the day, companies are closing down. Companies are recording losses. The people are being retrenched because of failure of the government of Zimbabwe to deal with the issue of electricity. I have talked about this and say, Zimbabwe claims to have relations with China. What it means is they can enter into a contractual agreement with China so that they get solar panels into Zimbabwe or using order price. But they will not do that because if Zimbabwean government is to order solar panels directly from China, the cost to have 100 megawatts, 40 million US, and you get 500,000 solar panels, which can actually save, for example, which can save 100 megawatts. So with the other equipment you need, labor, transportation, and everything, 100 megawatts should be at a cost of around 89 million US dollars. The highest in the world is 89 million. In the US, in the United States of America, the cost of installing a 100 megawatt solar system, it's between 70 and 89 million. This is a cost by a private company. So if Zimbabwe Power Company was doing this on its own without giving tenders to people like Vanachivayo, if the Zimbabwe Power Company was doing this on its own, you would see that with 100 million, vaigona kutisira 100 megawatts solar system iri fully functional and fully owned by the government. With 200 million, Taiwan at 200 megawatts. With 300 million, Taiwan at 300 megawatts. Tichitosara ne change of around 30 million. So you understand, these people, they all they want is to make profit. So they would destroy everything for the sake of making profit. Chivayo's quotation it's quoted around 180 million, if I'm not mistaken, 187 million for the Gwanda solar project. That money can finance 200 megawatts power plant being done by ZPC. But they choose to put it on tender so that they loot the other 100 megawatts equivalent. That is how these people survive. So it's not about the interests of the people of Zimbabwe. It's about their own interests as individuals. So when we see Zimbabwe being destroyed, it's not because Zimbabwe does not have ideas. It's not because Zimbabwe is not capacitated. Zimbabwe is capacitated. They claim to have relations with China. China is the biggest producer of DC equipment, my solar panels, my batteries, and everything. With the deposits of lithium in Zimbabwe, we could have seen partnerships which are meaningful, which were going to bring a sustainable energy solution to the nation of Zimbabwe. But it's not there because they do not care. So put everything together. Put everything together. You understand that the people from ZANU PF, they don't want stability. A functional or a stable financial sector in Zimbabwe will make ZANU PF people poor because machange money anenga asina basa. They won't be controlling the market in terms of rates. So they will be crushed. With the functional financial sector, we will see banks giving loans to people. Myself, I will go to the bank, get a loan without connection. I will start a business, start to thrive. That is a threat to somebody who started a business but has been benefiting from lack of competition. You see ZANU PF people suffering the most because they don't have ideas. The people with ideas don't have cash today because the financial sector is in tatters. The financial sector is not working, is not functional. So ZANU PF has destroyed everything. They've destroyed Zimbabwe. We can spend the whole days pointing out ZANU PF failures. So Team Zimbabwe, when we are saying ZANU PF has destroyed Zimbabwe, that is the reason why they are refusing to leave the stage, because they know that their businesses or the businesses they've established were thriving because of looting, because of unfair competition, because of unfair monopoly, because they've destroyed everything. ZANU PF people will come to tell you otherwise. Let us unite Team Zimbabwe, work together so that we find solutions which are going to make Zimbabwe thrive, which are going to make Zimbabwe go forward. So Elwin, and just like ANC in South Africa and the rest of the world, mediocrity. Hello, people. Grace, thank you very much for coming. Elwin, thank you very much for coming. So today, we were talking about how ZANU PF has destroyed Zimbabwe, and we touched just a few of evidence pointers. It's up to you as citizens to actually consider those things seriously and see how ZANU PF is misleading the country, how ZANU PF is misleading everybody, and how they've managed to destroy everything. That is the reason why they do not want change in the nation of Zimbabwe. Till we meet again in another episode, another broadcast. Keep on subscribing.